Hello and welcome to this episode of the podcast. Today's guest is Chris Macaulay. Now, Chris is the CEO of Advvy, which is a high-growth tech startup based in Brisbane, Australia. Chris talks us through a lot of the times that him and the team had to push through some really tough challenges along the way to building such a company. And that involves dealing with investors through to the lean startup not really working for them, which was quite the surprise to hear. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a little sneak peek of one of the stories before we get into the full episode.
And then it was this amazing moment where the room went quiet and our investor said, basically, you guys are doing it wrong, and if you continue down this path, you'll be out of money, we're out, and you won't have a business because it just isn't possible to do it how you're doing it. Just starting small. He's like, you need to take a full enterprise direction with the product and rebuild it from the scratch. And that was a brutal moment for us because, we had hired some of the most unbelievable designers that I've ever worked with, and some amazing developers and some really, really cool team. And we had to do this second pivot, which was, our mission has never changed from day one, but how we did it drastically changed that day.
Hello and welcome to the Be The Push podcast. My name is Jack Ferguson and I'm going to be sharing with you stories of how business owners and entrepreneurs had to push through the hard times in their careers. We're going to be discussing the lessons learned from these experiences while arming you with actionable advice so you can be the push when you need it most. Show notes can be found at bethepush.com/podcast and clicking on the relevant episode link. Let's get started. So we have that story coming up amongst many more in this episode. Chris has got a particularly candid approach to speaking, and it was a really great episode for me to record. I really enjoyed it. And Chris talks about building a product only to have to start again 9 months later, amongst other challenges that they've had to push through, including getting good at enterprise sales. Now, Chris is a good salesman, but he's always sold to small to medium-sized businesses. And he talks about what it was like to actually change tact and have to sell to a much larger organization. The particularly interesting part for me was how the lean startup approach didn't work for Chris. In entrepreneur land, we often look to the lean startup as our Bible, and it's interesting that it didn't work in this case. So Chris talks us through why it failed Advvy, and it's really insightful. So I really hope you enjoy the episode. Let's get into it. All right, so today we're here with Chris Macaulay. Chris, how are you going?
I'm unbelievable. How are you?
I'm pretty good, thanks. So I usually introduce the guest on the podcast, but today, did you want to give us a rundown on where you've been at in your career, just a sort of an overview of what you've done so far?
Sure.
Just to give our listeners some context.
Yeah, absolutely. 28 years old, co-founder and CEO of Advvy, a media tech company. Married, father of 3 young kids. And it's my life is absolutely chaos at all times.
Right. And so where did you start your career?
So I started it way back in sales. So
Okay.
I've always been in sales.
Yep.
Even right back to when I was in school, back in like grade 6 when Pokemon cards were the biggest thing.
Yeah.
I would team up with the kind of nerdy kids who would spend all their money on buying these cool cards, and I would then be basically the broker, and I would basically sell their cards for them, take a cut, and that funded my tuck shop money for the entire year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I've always from a very young age I worked out that I'm good with people and I can sell things.
Gotcha.
So that took me through. Worked in retail for several years, running different stores. Then moved, started to get a real interest in technology.
Yep.
And that was about 6 years ago. I realised I didn't know much about it. And so I started a networking event to kind of meet other entrepreneurs who knew something about tech.
At that Silicon Beach?
It's what Silicon Beach is now.
Okay, right.
And it was called Startup Brisbane. And so 3 people rocked up to the first event.
Yep.
And we slowly, we would run monthly events to kind of get people in a room, and we'd get a speaker in to talk about, how to raise capital and how to market your startup or access government funding. And we realized pretty quickly that people just wanted to drink beer and meet each other.
Gotcha.
And so we held the next event at a bar, and 90 people rocked up, then 110, then 150, and it kind of snowballed from there. And then a few years ago, Silicon Beach launched in Brisbane, and we ended up merging the events together, and I kind of took over running that. So Silicon Beach is now the largest networking event for tech startups in Brisbane.
In Queensland, wouldn't it be?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess technically it's Australia, but who's keeping check? Yeah. So we average several hundred people per event, and it's become a kind of the central event to meet other entrepreneurs. So yeah, it's cool.
And
so
why did you start that in the first place? Did you say? Why did you start the networking event? You just wanted to meet other people like you, or
I wanted to meet. The startup scene in Brisbane was very, very early.
Yep.
There wasn't a lot of activity happening at all. It was before River City Labs, before iLab. It was before all of. Oh, sorry, iLab was up and running, but it was the previous version of iLab. And so, I wanted to meet other entrepreneurs who knew something about technology because I knew very little. I knew how to sell stuff, and I loved business. I've always been kind of involved with the various different businesses. And yeah, I saw it as a cool way to kind of meet people.
But why tech then?
When I was going through university, I actually started a skateboard company.
Okay.
And so we were manufacturing and distributing skateboards and clothing. So, I kind of grew that, got into a bunch of stores, and was selling product. But the skateboard industry is a very tough industry. And I found out, about a year and a half into it, the industry was just the margins were getting squeezed. People were buying less skateboards. Scooters were unfortunately becoming more popular. And it was just I had this sat back and realized that it was just an industry I didn't want to be in. And that's when I started looking at technology. I'm like, well, it can scale much faster. It can, there's better margins and things like that. And so I started investigating. And that's kind of when the whole startup scene, I felt was kind of becoming sexy.
Yep. Was that
cool.
around the social network, around that time it came out?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's where I benchmarked when it started all being cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to be the next Zucks.
Right. And so what did you do at uni? I didn't know you went to uni.
Yeah, I went to uni, did business management and marketing.
Okay.
And it
did it help?
Not really, if I'm brutally honest.
Yeah.
I won't say where I studied.
That's okay.
They might be listening. But I studied business management and marketing. And I was fortunate that I had a skateboard business on the side, and that was occupying a lot of my time. And so all my uni assignments about how to market a business, I would actually do that and apply it to
my
skateboard business, which I found was effective. But in terms of value, I would, unless something dramatically changes with the education system for business degrees, I would recommend anyone just join a startup.
Gotcha.
That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, no, it's mine too. Don't worry about that. So now you're with Advvy. You're the CEO of Advvy now.
Yeah.
Firstly, we've got some interesting stories you're going to share about this. But first, just tell us what Advvy is, and then we'll get into some of the horror stories.
I wouldn't say horror.
Okay, some of the war stories.
Yeah. So Advvy, we're a media technology company. We build workflow automation solutions for media agencies and media publishers. So the easy way to explain it is if you think about the whole online ad space, it's very sophisticated in how you can target people and run large-scale campaigns. But if you think about traditional media, so your TV, radio, print, outdoor cinema, it's a very, very archaic industry. If I want to book a radio campaign, I've got to ring the sales guy at the radio station, email through a campaign brief of this is who I want to target, how much I want to spend, and these are the campaign goals and blah, blah, blah. He'll then, book a meeting with his internal planners, and they'll sit down and strategize, and it'll go to the creative department and the production, and they'll come back with ideas, and it goes through all these like data research tools that don't talk to each other, and got all through all these clunky processes, and a few days later he'll come back with a spreadsheet of these are the ads we're going to run for you, and this is how much it's going to cost, and here's a PowerPoint presentation of why you should choose us.
Right. Yep.
Now at scale, a media agency, so say their client's McDonald's and they're doing $1 million Big Mac campaign. The media planners, their job is to work out which channels they're going to be on, which shows, which billboards they're going to place it on, which radio networks at what times, and all that kind of stuff. Their job is exponentially more difficult because they have to brief out so many vendors. They have to wait for the responses. They have to receive all their spreadsheets back. Then they have to consolidate that into a single view so they can actually show their client. And all the information is stored in emails and files somewhere. And so actually managing and maintaining that data is an absolute pain in the ass.
Sounds like a nightmare.
It is. And so the media industry as a whole has identified that efficiency is the number one problem that they need to solve in the next few years.
Gotcha.
As there becomes way more options for advertisers to buy, so there's way more online channels. There's TV networks that are launching all new channels to target, home and lifestyle and sport, and so the growth of options is way more than it used to be, and so it puts more strain on media planners who have finite time to actually plan out these campaigns and buy it and actually manage it. And so we're bringing efficiency to that workflow.
Gotcha. So that's a tool that they'd use, a media planner. They'd use the tool. Is that right?
Yeah, we have two separate offerings. Okay. We have a product for the media agencies.
Yep.
And so the media planners would use that to do all their briefing, their media planning, their briefing, the campaign briefing, and managing all the workflow around that through to kind of reporting. And then on the publisher, we have a separate product, which is more around tracking sales and deal flow and how they do it. It's much more of a CRM type play.
Okay, gotcha. Cool. All right. So you've been doing that for about 2.5 years now. Have you had some particularly challenging times?
Yes. Where do I begin? We started the business back in September 2014. My business partner and I, we're from kind of the media industry. I've got a digital media background, and Tristan was a sales exec at Nova Radio and APN Outdoor selling billboards. And so it was through his personal frustration of dealing with all these clunky systems is where we kind of came up with it. So we were both sales guys, fairly non-tech. I think we've learnt a lot over the last 2 years. But that was challenging to start with, trying to build up a technical team around something that we couldn't quite... we knew what we wanted, but didn't understand how the technical side of things would actually work. So that was challenging. We were fortunate to team up with an investment group, Future Now Ventures, and they, when we pitched them about 2 years ago, from that day to the deal being signed and approved and cash in the bank was 10 days, which is kind of unheard of.
Yeah.
But one of the things I would say our biggest issue that we had up front was... and that we've had over the last 2 years is we started out with an idea of like, how can we make this whole experience better? It was Tristan's frustration. He hated his job because it was just, he felt like a monkey could do, or a robot could do his job for him.
Are you just putting out fires all the time, all day? But that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, and he would sit up from the sales perspective. He would spend his entire day cutting and pasting from spreadsheet to spreadsheet, and it was. Yeah, he's still scarred from it.
Right.
It's funny. And so we knew that there was a big opportunity. We knew that the industry was progressing towards automation. I guess one of the challenges that we one of the assumptions we made was where the industry thought this term programmatic was going. So programmatic is just basically automation.
Okay.
And so we started out on a path building out what we thought was the solution, and I think we didn't get enough validation from customers at the right level to kind of really inform how the product would work. So we kind of set off. We had a team of about 6 people, and we spent 12 months kind of building out this prototype. And talking to some people at the media agencies, they're like, "Oh, this is great! This is fantastic! I can do all of my media trading automatically. I don't need to talk to sales reps, and it's going to save me so much time. It's brilliant." And so we're like, "Oh, great! I think we've got a product market fit. Like we're on fire."
Yep.
And then when we actually kind of built out this prototype, we started to take it on the roadshow, and media agencies were like, "That's great, but we really need these, this enterprise grade system before we can actually implement anything." And then we took it over to the media publishers, so the radio networks, and it genuinely freaked them out. They're like, "Whoa, we're not ready for this. We've still got 50 guys in a room, on the phones negotiating rates and kind of managing that. We can't just fire them overnight and adopt a system."
Oh, wow.
And it was a massive realization for us that although automation is coming into the industry and processes are going to come in to improve efficiency, that's not how the industry. Like the industry won't just sacrifice its people. It is probably one of the most people-driven industries. It's really based on relationships, and people will never be completely removed from the process of buying and selling ads. As much as everyone thinks that bloody Google is going to take over the world, I guarantee it won't.
Okay.
Entirely. I agree that automation is coming in a big way, and digital media is growing exponentially. But TV will change as digital streams come in, and radio might as well. But the actual people who are behind the scenes making this $700 billion of media spend happen.
Yep.
It's very manual.
Wow. And they don't want to change.
And
quickly.
they don't want to. No, because the media agencies are very protective of their people.
Yep.
Particularly as you look into some parts of Asia, where they actually see hiring more people as a really good thing.
Okay.
And on the sales side of things, publishers are never actually going to release full control of their inventory. So if you think about advertising and how the Google ad networks, Google controls all of the ad inventory that they display. A TV network, they make all of their money and by selling the big upfront deals at the start of the year to their big clients, and but then they also package in some of the crap stuff in with the good stuff to add value in quotes. But they feel like they can sell their inventory better than anyone else.
Okay.
And I guess it's a very divided opinion of whether that's correct, depending on who you talk to. I tend to agree with it. And so, there's this whole thing of automation. So a big learning for us is, yes, automation is coming, but where is the industry today, and what are the products we can deliver today to actually help facilitate that process rather than trying to automate that? So we underwent a massive pivot, which was pivot number 1 of 2. And so we're like, all right, well, how can we, we're this lean, agile startup, and, we at that point we just raised another bit of seed capital, and we started adding some more people to the team, and we effectively rebuilt the platform from scratch.
Right.
And we said, well, being this kind of agile startup, taking the whole lean startup methodology, how can we, build up this MVP that we can kind of start small and then build out from there? We took that approach and we built out a briefing tool, so allowing media agencies to create briefs on a cloud-based platform, facilitate all the communications back and forward, and we thought that would be the first step. So we ramped up our team. At this point, we were, probably 10 or 12 people, and we spent the next 9 months kind of building out this prototype that we would kind of take to market. And, we a technical team. At this point, we still didn't have a CTO on board.
Yep.
We had a tech lead. We had solution architect kind of guy, and we'd kind of split our resources. So we had half the team in Brisbane and half the team in Manila, in the Philippines. There's a separate story of why we chose to do that. Largely because the investment fund that's backed us, they're Australian guys, but actually based in the Philippines.
All right. Yep.
Our investors are amazing, and I can talk about them later. But so we started building out this system, and we were constantly traveling. For us, our business, Asia Pacific is a big focus. So we were traveling all across Asia, meeting with lots of potential customers, and trying to get their thoughts on how we could build this out. And the overall sentiment was, this is great, and I can see where you're going, but we need a full system. This could save us 10% of our time, which is great. At scale, it's still significantly valuable. But it's like, for us to justify, and this is the systems managers of these big multinational media agencies, for us to justify actually deploying this or piloting it or anything, like, it needs to be fully enterprise, it needs to be fully compliant. These companies are listed on, say, the NASDAQ, and so they've got all these regulatory compliance requirements that they have to go through, and they can't even explore working with vendors until they have that compliance checks.
So would it be fair to say that the lean startup principles that we all hear about then weren't helpful to you?
Completely.
Yeah.
Wow. We thought that we could get away with it, but our customers are big multinationals. On the agency side of our product, we have 5 main customers globally. It just so happens that these 5 big holding groups, own 85% of the world's media agencies and control 85% of the media spend that happens globally. And they're big companies. Our biggest potential customer that we're in discussions with at the moment, they've got 225,000 people, 4,000 offices around the world.
Right. Yeah.
So they're kind of big guys, right? And so, as you could imagine, they've got very stringent processes, and there's, selling to enterprise is a beast in itself. And so what we realized from, like, as we were kind of building out this kind of second iteration of the product, was that, oh crap, like, what we've built isn't enough.
So the second time around, it's still not going to be enough, you're saying?
Yeah, because we thought we could build out this small light version of the product, and we even called it UniBrief Lite. Yeah. So it's like this universal briefing system, and then with the goal that we would build out an enterprise version down the track and kind of do that. But we had this realization. It's only 4 or 5 months ago that we were quickly running out of money. We were burning through lots, and we still had no indication from customers that they were actually going to buy the product.
Okay. Yep.
And so we started looking at our investors. Started to get a bit edgy, and basically called us. We had a meeting with them on a Wednesday at 5 p.m. And they got called into a meeting kind of halfway through. Or had to go halfway through this meeting. So they're like, "Look, we need to finish the conversation. Can you guys be in Manila tomorrow morning?"
Whoa!
And we're like, "Okay." Yeah. And so 3 hours later, we were on a plane to Singapore and then over to the Philippines, and we sat down with our investors for 3 days. I guess I'll explain who our investors are. So our investors built the world's largest Salesforce integration company called Cloud Sherpas. And the guy who runs the fund or owns the fund, it's largely his money. And he sold it off to a multinational company last year for many hundreds of millions of dollars. And so he's got big enterprise kind of CRM experience, and had worked very heavily with big Salesforces and Microsofts and things like that. And so he knows very much what it takes to build a big, SaaS enterprise company. And and so we kind of had this meeting where it felt like we were getting called into the principal's office, and we kind of tore everything apart and went to a very, very granular level of what we were trying to achieve and the bigger vision and where we're going, and then it was this amazing moment where the room went quiet and our investor said, basically, you guys are doing it wrong, and if you continue down this path, you'll be out of money, we're out, and you won't have a business because it just isn't possible to do it how you're doing it. Just starting small. He's like, you need to take a full enterprise direction with the product and rebuild it from the scratch. And that was a brutal moment for us because, we had hired some of the most unbelievable designers that I've ever worked with, and some amazing developers and some really, really cool team. And we had to do this second pivot, which was, our mission has never changed from day one, but how we did it drastically changed that day. And, we came back to Brisbane and shared with our staff what happened. And within that week, we made half our team redundant.
Wow.
So that was brutal.
Yeah.
Just because, with this whole new focus of building out this enterprise grade product, the resources that we had hired, we no longer needed.
Yep.
But we needed different types of resources, different types of developers, and different types of solution architects and things like that.
Was that the first time you had to do something like that, make someone redundant?
Made people redundant, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, being in previous jobs, I've had to hire and fire people.
Okay.
And I was always the bad guy that had to do it.
Right. Okay.
But
it sounds like these guys didn't really do anything wrong though. Like this would be particularly.
No. And they're amazing people.
Yeah.
And we're actually we're actually going to be trying to rehire one of the guys early next year. That's a different thing. So we came back. We had to make some massive changes in the business. Our investors came back in. They're like, look, with now that we're all on the same page of what it's actually going to take to build this business, we're in. Our belief in you guys and the belief in kind of where you're going is still there. And here's some more cash. We need to make this happen. So it was a really humbling moment for us. And now we straight away made some amazing hires from that. We finally hired our CTO. We spent 9 months looking for the right CTO.
How did you look?
We used recruiters.
Okay. Yep.
We interviewed some, heads of some very, very large companies in Queensland, massive tech companies.
Yep.
The CTOs of those companies. Got fairly deep in discussions with a few of them, and for one reason or other, it just didn't seem like a fit.
Right. Okay.
Whether it was a cultural thing or some of the technical experience that they had, we were kind of looking. We're an enterprise company, and so we need that level of enterprise experience. So someone knows how to build out something that is kind of enterprise grade, and lead a team that will be quite a significant size team over the next few years. But also that startup experience, and someone that understands the value of moving quickly and fast iterating and all that kind of stuff, and then also preferably from the media industry, and we just could not find that person at all in Brisbane or even Australia.
Wow.
So we ended up hiring a guy out of London.
Wow.
And we moved over his family and and relocated them.
Yeah.
So he was the head of engineering for BBC Worldwide. So Top Gear and everything like that. He managed a huge team of devs over there. Had worked with remote teams before. He's also co-founded and built up his own tech startups prior to that. And how he got into BBC was he was actually working as CTO for a company that got acquired by BBC and then kind of moved up the chain. And so that was an amazing hire. We also hired a very senior head of product He'd previously worked for a mobile development company, and he had set up and ran their operations out of Singapore and ran their expansion to APAC, and then went over to San Francisco and ran their expansion into the US. And so, he's just both of those guys. We hired pretty much at the same time.
Right. So it took 9 months for both of them to get.
No, Matt, our head of product, it was fairly quick.
Okay. Yep.
He had just relocated back to Brisbane.
Okay.
And we were introduced through our investors.
Yep.
And we put an offer out, and it was pretty quick.
I'm wondering what you're thinking 6 months into trying to get a CTO. What's going through your head there?
We should have hired much sooner.
Okay.
But I'm also a big believer of hiring the right people, and kind of hiring slowly and firing quickly. The CTO is one of the core. Every time I think of a CTO, I think of Steve Baxter saying, like, I would never touch a startup that doesn't have a technical co-founder.
Yeah.
And that's always like stuck in the back of my mind.
Yeah, he said that a couple episodes ago.
Yeah. And finding the right people. Because as a fairly non-tech guy, I can run the business, I can do the sales, I can do all that kind of stuff. But we had to get the right people who were equally as serious about building a very large business. Mm-hmm. And that took time because we just couldn't find those people locally.
Yep. Okay. And I'm really interested in the lean startup approach isn't working, because that is almost an assumption, I feel, in the entrepreneurial community, is that you have to do it lean startup. Lean startup is the only way. And you're saying that was the exact wrong way for you guys to do it.
Yeah, it depends on what industry you're in, and or kind of what industry or vertical or however you want to call it. Being an enterprise company is often quite challenging to take that approach. Often it requires a lot more development. Compliance. We've spent probably $40,000 in the last 6 months on compliance stuff, and we've had to engage a global auditing firm to do an audit on our data security and internal processes, and so for us to actually put those processes in place, but then also have it verified by some of the big auditing firms. That's a bloody expensive process, and to be honest, we'll probably spend another $50,000 on that in the next 12 months.
Wow.
Just to get the tick of approval, because you're dealing with these multinationals who have clients who are, the biggest banks in the world, the biggest brands in the world, who have unbelievable compliance requirements about where their data is secured and who has access, and so the level of permissioning in our system we've had to build is unbelievable. Yeah, and so that kind of stuff, if you're building a little app or something like that, it's just not factors that you kind of have to factor in.
Gotcha.
And so it was a much more expensive process for us. Hiring very senior people from the industry cost us a fortune. Yeah. But we're very serious about building a very large business over the next 5 or 6 years.
Did you consider changing your target market to be able to implement sort of lean startup approach? Maybe people without the level of compliance requirements.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely almost went down that road with this UniBrief Lite product. We almost got to the point where it was like, all right, well, we realised the big agencies aren't going to buy it, and until we sunk a lot of money and time into kind of fixing the product. But there's small agencies, so generally they're salespeople who've worked at a radio station or TV network who have left and wanted to work for themselves and kind of took some of their clients with them. So there's little 1 to kind of 5 people teams all over the place. Right. Who we spoke to many of them, and they're like, oh, this sounds great. But then we found that the price point was too high for them.
Okay. Yep.
And our product isn't cheap. Yep. To implement our product, to just do the implementation will cost you a few $100,000. Right, gotcha. And then upwards of $500,000 to $1 million a year in license and support fees. Yep. So we're an expensive product. And so it just wasn't going to work. We kind of did some peddling to see if it was possible.
Yep.
But that would have killed the business.
Gotcha. Okay. Right. So I suppose my question then is, I'm thinking about, so you're building this huge system. This huge product. I think I'd be like, I'm assuming I'd be worried. Like then I'd go to these big companies, and then because the lean startup approach hasn't been implemented, that's not what we wanted.
That's exactly what happened.
All right. Yeah.
So we, when we started building it, we were pretty close to the end of building this this second version of the product, and we took it out to customers, and they're like, I could see where you're going, and it's kind of solving a problem for us, and but as I said before, they needed these certain things to actually get by. What it did was actually a really positive thing for us, because we went back to them and said, we want to work with you. We're keen, we're agile. This is the team we've put together. We're backed by a venture fund. We're very serious about solving this problem. Yes, we had it wrong before, and we apologize for that. But now we want to actually collaborate with you to build out the product that actually solves your problem. And then from that, opened up an amazing discussion with some of the biggest companies in our industry, where they all have mandates to solve their efficiency problems because they're getting squeezed on margins. There's way more options, which means their staff are working much harder. There's a report that went out at one of the big media agencies. A guy out of Japan committed suicide 2 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
From being overworked.
Okay.
And so this whole issue of just so much chaos happening in this industry, and they need to find efficiencies. And so, and they don't have solutions for it currently. And so it's something that they really want, and they really want to work with companies who can actually deliver that. And so it really opened up a very, authentic and honest conversation about where we're actually at, and what it would take to actually build out the solutions that they need. And since then, we've been able to rapidly build out our product. So what we kind of had spent 9 months kind of half building our, light version of this product, we've actually built out 2 enterprise grade products in the last 4 months.
Right.
With a small team.
Yeah.
And so we've got a team of 15 now, split across our 2 locations, and we'll be hiring probably another 5 or 6 people in Brisbane and Sydney in the next few months.
Yep.
So it's allowed us to move much faster. We're actually working directly with our customers, and we're working, they've been really helpful in opening up about some of the compliance requirements and specific to them, and some of the functionality that might be specific to them. And it's allowed us to build up this platform that we can actually configure to the different customers based on how they the specific workflows in their business.
Right. So they're part of the conversation as you're building it out. That's awesome.
Yeah. So we often have meetings with our customers.
Okay.
At various different levels. I guess it's one of the other challenges that we had with this whole shift towards enterprise. Tristan and myself, coming from a sales background, we've always been selling to small to medium companies. When I was working at a digital agency running the sales team there, our customers were, our biggest customer was like Eagle Boys. And, they're on the grand scheme of things, they're not big companies.
Yeah.
And so
Eagle Boys, especially not now.
Not anymore. I don't know if their acquisition's been announced, but they just got bought. And so it's a very different sales process where you kind of get to speak directly to the decision maker. Selling to these multinationals, in order to land pilots with one customer, we've had to travel many times over to Singapore to meet up with their APAC planning directors and IT compliance guys and things like that. We are, being based out of Brisbane is challenging because none of the decision makers are here.
Oh, right. Any in Australia?
Yeah, for local stuff. These agencies and publishers, generally Australian head office will be in Sydney and Melbourne. But often, in order to actually get something approved, it has to go up to APAC for signature.
Yeah.
And so it was a big learning for us on how to actually sell to enterprise, because we'd never done it before. And all the politics. And,
so how would you get in touch with a decision maker at an enterprise? Because that, like, sometimes it's hard enough, even at a medium-sized company, to get to the CEO. I mean, you can probably do it, but it's not always easy just at that level. It's
a hustle, man. Selling to enterprise, I mean, I love selling to B2B, because unlike B2C, where you don't know who your customers are and you've got to do this blanket kind of, whether it's Google Ads campaigns or, traditional media or whatever, you got to run these big ad campaigns to kind of bring in people.
Yeah.
B2B is amazing because you jump on LinkedIn and you know exactly who you need to speak with. And then it just becomes a challenge of how do you actually speak to them.
Yep.
We've been fortunate. We've built up an advisory board for Advvy, and there's some of the executives of the top media agencies in the world. As well as people who have run, the largest media finance company, who's a big kind of integration that we have to make. We got the guy who used to be the managing director there and who actually architected their system.
Oh, right.
So when we start talking about technical requirements and things like that, they've been really helpful in kind of helping steer that. But they've also opened up a lot of doors for us.
Okay, yep.
And our investors have been really helpful with it as well.
Yep.
But customers, it's not easy. We've got to head out to Singapore and Hong Kong next week to meet with customers or potential customers at the same companies we've been talking to for 12 months, but at different levels.
Okay.
And so, the thing that is very different about enterprise sales is you have to sell to lots of different people who have lots of different interests. So the conversation you have at a C-suite is very different to what you have at a investment director or a CIO level, or even at a low level, like the actual users of the product. And so that has been a challenge for us. So we've had to start using different. It's not really a CRM. It's kind of account management software to really profile and keep track of who is who in the bloody media zoo. Yeah. and so it's been a mission. So it's easy to work out who you need to talk to.
Okay.
Getting to them is always a challenge, but there's always a way that people know people, and it's as much as it's quite a big industry, it's quite niche as well.
Okay.
And everyone kind of talks to each other.
Okay.
The competitors.
Gotcha. Because I've got this idea in my head now that you got to call like reception, then you got to impress them, and they put you on to the next person, then you got to impress them, and they pass you on to the next person. Is it kind of like that?
Ish.
Okay.
Ish. Yeah. It's generally done face to face kind of things. But I'm a massive believer in picking up the phone. I hiding behind emails does not work, particularly when you're starting to get to some of the key decision makers. Just sending a blanket email saying, "Hey, this is Chris from Advvy, and this is what we do, and love to buy a coffee."
Delete.
That's as spam as you get. I have to say, Tristan, my business partner, is probably the best sales guy I've ever met.
Oh wow!
He always jokes about he's going to write a book called "Pick Up the Phone," and it's if you want to be good at sales, pick up the phone. And every page just says "Pick up the phone."
Right.
He's amazing. You get a customer on the phone with him, no matter who it is.
Yeah.
And he can either close something. It's impressive to watch.
Right.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I've definitely learned a lot from that. But it's a grind. It's a massive hustle to get to these levels and maintain the relationships, and we have to travel a lot. So being away from family and kids.
How is that?
It's a challenge. It really is. As I said in the intro, I've got 3 young kids. My wife and I got married young, and we ended up having 3 under 3. So my little boy is 4, and I've got 2 girls, 2 and 1. And and so finding time for them, as well as managing this startup.
Being CEO of it too.
it's an absolute challenge.
Yeah.
But it's when you get forced into difficult situations, you kind of just have to make it work.
Yeah.
And so we've had both Tristan and I. He's got a young family as well. In fact, all of our key guys have young families, and we've had to put boundaries and stuff in place to actually protect that. We're protective of weekends. We'll work bulk hours and travel everywhere during the week.
Okay.
But on the weekends, it has to be family time.
Right.
And we've been very particular putting that in place. So you can actually see your kids, which is nice.
Right. So you're not allowed to work on a weekend if you work at Advvy?
Yeah, it's
more or less.
It's what we say. And it's something we try to enforce.
Yeah.
The reality is, my phone never stops, and it really is difficult to switch off. I'm very much, I've always been that kind of guy. I'll work 80 hours a week, so I never have to work 40 hours again.
Yeah.
And so it's not an easy thing. Everyone talks about, there is no work-life balance in startup world, which is, you have to have that to some extent. I know that if I was single and didn't have kids, I would be working 20 hours a day, going nuts.
Right.
Because I'm kind of wired that way. I'm a bit of a workaholic. But yeah, I mean, we've been very intentional about putting some things in place just to kind of keep that balance.
But it's still a challenge to switch off by the sounds. I mean, like from what you're
it's always
saying.
a challenge.
I mean that's something I struggle with too, and I've got nothing near what I don't have to deal with anything close to what you have to deal with. But just actually switching off and enjoying something else apart from business or your career. Are you making inroads there?
Yeah, I am. My wife and I, we just booked our first holiday that we're taking next year. It's our first holiday in 6 years.
Wow.
This is the first time I've ever taken annual leave off. That's not true. I did take a few days off when I had each of the kids.
Okay.
But then I was back at work pretty quickly.
Wow. Okay.
Within a few days. But yeah, it's the first time I'll actually be able to switch off for 2 weeks or so. So I guess that's progress.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So why do it all in the first place? I mean, you kind of touched on it a bit, but it's sounding like, entrepreneur life, tough as hell. Do you sometimes feel like giving up, or have you felt like giving up along the way?
I've never felt like giving up.
Okay.
But it has been the most stressful thing I've ever done.
Right.
Unbelievably stressful. Those moments where you sign a deal with a multinational company and it's your first ever, it was our first ever, going to be our first ever customer. And, we went out to Singapore and met with the CFO and the whole team, who's going to be running the pilots and we're going to be running all this. And it was all good. And then a few things happened and then it was like the deal was off and the deal was dead and it got kiboshed by someone with internal, their own internal agenda. And we kind of never found out what actually happened.
Okay.
But, when we had allocated resources to actually fly out to Singapore the following week and do all this stuff, you get put in a lot of stressful situations, managing cash flow as you kind of go through your burn rate and kind of counting down the days of how much money you've got left in the bank. And then, the ATO send you a massive bill and you're like, crap. There's so many moments that are really real highs and also real lows. Yeah. And that almost fluctuates daily.
Right.
But I guess it's almost like a drug in itself. Like you get addicted to the
drama.
To the drama. Yeah. And I love it.
Yeah.
I'm very, very convinced that we are building something very big. We're solving a huge problem.
Yep.
And we've now really validated that. And customers are lining up for our product, which is amazing.
Brilliant.
Our investors have been amazingly supportive. We've built a really solid team. So now I'm actually really confident. We had this moment a few months ago where we actually sat back and we're like, we're actually confident we can pull this off.
Yeah.
And so now it's just a matter of doing it. And so building something like that has, you know, I've always loved business, and I've always wanted to, you know, for me, it's not about, you know, trying to just build the next unicorn or something, but you know, I genuinely want the experience of building a multinational company, and taking it from, you know, an idea stage. We literally sat in a pub 2.5 years ago and started writing out on napkins, but they kept ripping. And so we got out an iPad with a like a little doodle sketch thing, and we started mapping out wireframes for what this product could be.
Yep.
And so you're taking something from such a small idea stage through to where we are now is really exciting, but that's nothing on where we're going. And so, you know, I love that. So keeps me coming back in the office every day.
Right. And what about learning to? I suppose you already knew how to do it a bit, but you would have had to learn a lot about managing people, I assume.
Yeah, I'm fortunate that I actually learned how to manage people when I was working in retail.
Okay, yeah.
So when I was running one of the stores, I was working for a fashion retailer, and I had a team of, I think in my store I was managing about 15 people, and then ended up running a few different stores, and so that was when I was 18. And so from a very young age, I kind of had to learn how to manage people, and I've always been around kind of people in leadership positions. And so I've always loved business. It's always been a passion of mine. So I've always been curious on how people did things. And, you know, when I would come across, you know, a CEO of some big company, I always try to, you know, grab a coffee with them just to spend time with them and learn how they did things. And, and I've been able to apply a lot of that, to what we're doing now. And, you know, half of our team are way older than me. And
oh, right.
1,000 times smarter than me. And, you know, it's one of these things, like you learn how to hire people that are way smarter than you.
Yeah.
And leave them to kind of do their thing.
So what do you see your role as CEO? What is your role, like, as opposed to, I know the title, right, but what is the application of that? You know, what do you see that as in a day-to-day?
Yeah, I think that's changed over the last year or so. It started out with just being, you know, a title that meant literally nothing because it was just Tristan and I. He's more of the creative kind of guy who's, you know, amazing at sales and very creative, and whereas I'm much more an analytical kind of guy. So I'm like, look, I'll run the business side of things. You get the customers. Yep. And so he runs the sales and marketing side of things, and I kind of run the business. So CEO kind of naturally, I guess, fell on my shoulders. So, but it literally meant nothing. Yep. Over the past 12 months, we, as a team has grown, we've had to kind of divide and conquer. Yep. We've actually put set rules in terms of roles and responsibilities under that. So now a lot of my role, we've got a CTO who manages the technical side of things and runs the technical team. We've got a head of product who starts to take in requirements from customers and actually map out what the product should actually do. That then feeds into the technical team. Tristan really looks after a lot of the sales and marketing side of things and all the relationship side of running customers. And I really focus on actually still running the business side of things. So, you know, it's me doing all the contracts and the legals and the hiring and the firing and, you know, all the boring stuff behind the scenes to make the wheels turn.
Cool. And so were you born a leader, or did you have to develop those skills?
I think I've always had leadership, like I've always been in kind of leadership positions. Any job that I've ever had, I always started off, you know, towards the bottom and then kind of moved up into leadership positions pretty quickly. Yeah. I'm good at managing people and understanding people, and I've learnt a lot about how to not do it and how to do it from different people I've worked with in the past. And managing people is managing cash flow is pretty much my only focus.
Right. Okay.
We've been able to hire the right people to kind of run certain things, so the products are getting built. We've got marketing activities happening. All that kind of stuff that we've got business analysts that kind of gather requirements and all this kind of stuff that makes everything happen. And my job is to kind of coordinate everything. So at the moment, that's largely what I do.
Right.
We'll see how that changes over the next few years.
Yeah.
As we grow.
Yeah. And I ask this every podcast. Basically, so I do the podcast to try and help people take the next step. Talk about all the challenges people had. Do you have self-doubt from time to time?
No.
Really? Okay.
I would say no.
Okay.
No, I think innately I'm a very confident person, confident in my abilities.
Yeah.
And I definitely have the realization moments where I literally, you kind of sit there and you're like, I literally have no idea how we're going to solve this problem.
Yeah.
That happens a lot because you've never experienced things like that. But in terms of self-doubt, I know that we're going to build something big, and I know that I can do it.
Right.
So I wouldn't say I've got self-doubt.
Wow. That's impressive.
But how we're going to do it, that's still an unknown sometimes.
Yeah, I can imagine. So can anyone do this? Can anyone get in the game of entrepreneurship or startups and make it happen?
Look, anyone can try. The barrier to entry is very low.
Yeah.
You see the stats all the time, and I think you covered it on a previous podcast where, everyone talks about how 9 out of 10 startups fail, but lacks that context beyond that.
Yeah.
Where it's like, well, why do they fail and things like that?
Because the like if you look at something like the statistics of marriage, they're almost just as damning for say our demographic.
Yeah.
So it's not. There's a lot of things you can make look pretty bad by presenting in a certain way. So
yeah.
I saw a stat: 5 in 10 small businesses fail, and I think it's about 9 in 10 startups is what I was reading.
Yeah.
But but it doesn't go beyond that. So, sorry, I've interrupted your point there, but just keep going with the who can do it, who can't. Because I think I'm the person who can't. I don't think I could be a CEO of a high growth tech startup. I think it would. I'm not good enough with people. I think it would be too difficult.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is having self awareness to know what you're good at and what you're not. I think everyone can have a crack, but the reason that so many startups fail is that, first of all, people build the wrong team. They're solving a problem that doesn't exist. They haven't validated it with customers and all the stuff that we really struggled through over the last 2 years. People did that and they run out of money and failed.
And the interesting part about you guys is you guys were good at sales. So even for you, it was still tough to.
It's really tough, and I've been around startups for many, many years, but we still fell. We still struggle with some of the challenges of that typical startups face, because I'd been around people that had preached the lean startup methodology, and overall, I'm a believer in that approach. Spending little amounts of money to validate an idea and kind of, we felt like when we started out, building this whole system before we even spoke to customers was not the way to go, and so we tried to take this agile approach, but it for our industry now, our customers, it just wasn't the way to go. I think that it's definitely not easy. Learning how to sell to enterprise was a massive shift for us. We having no previous experience with that. Yes, we can sell. Yes, we're good at building relationships with people and stuff like that. But understanding how companies like that actually operate and want to be dealt with, that was all completely new territory for us.
Right. Wow. And I think that's a huge takeaway for this episode, is that the lean startup is not necessarily the only way, because sometimes that's the way we talk. It's just that's it. That's the only way you can do it.
Yeah, it's horses for courses, right?
Yeah. All right, Chris, thanks very much for being with us. Where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter, C Macaulay,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. If you want to flick me an email, it's Chris@Advvy, advvy.com.
Yep.
More than happy to answer any questions. And yeah.
Cool. So advvy.com is the website of...
Yeah, we've got
cool.
a new website coming live in the next week, which is exciting.
Awesome. I'll link to it in the show notes.
Cool.
Chris, it's been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Be The Push podcast. Show notes can be found at bethepush.com/podcast and clicking on the relevant episode link. I appreciate your company and look forward to talking to you again soon.